again. Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Seeing as others brought up sports broadcasting, I'm sure the chairman would agree with me that every American ought to be able to have access to watching Packer games. And I appreciate it. I would say you're probably not going to agree with me that Senator Klobuchar, that there are way too many people in Wisconsin and the western part of the state wearing Packer uniforms on game day. So I just want to ask the chairman. I've sent you a letter making sure that you will expeditiously review any petition by a Wisconsin broadcaster to allow those games to be broadcast over satellite. And I hope a broadcaster actually does so.
I'm sorry. I was coughing.
Okay.
This is
Just want to make sure the FCC expeditiously, hopefully, grants the petition of a Wisconsin broadcaster to carry Packer games over satellite.
so. What we're doing as a result of Stellar, as you
Right,
know, is
correct.
following through and looking at each of those. And I understand as I
Just a simple yes would be. Is what
Yes.
I'm looking for. Thank you. Appreciate it.
don't get to talk about Ohio State.
I'm really concerned, and the chairman is. We're concerned about Packer games. Chairman Wheeler, you are chairman of an independent agency, the FCC. It's supposed to be an independent agency, correct?
Yes, sir.
Accountable to a creation of Congress, correct?
Excuse me. Yes, sir.
Have you had a chance to read the report that we issued out of my Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, regulating the Internet, how the White House bowled over FCC independence?
No, sir, but I have read summaries of it.
Okay. There are a number of troubling findings. I'd like to ask a couple questions. First of all, were you aware that you had legal advisors within the FCC that were very troubled about the thin record to support the FCC rulemaking, potentially in violation of the Administrative Procedures Act? Were you aware that within FCC you were concerned about the thin record?
Boy, I hope so. I hope that the lawyers are constantly second-guessing each other and me.
But you were aware of that during
that was what was going on in this. We were having, believe me, it was fulsome debate and discussion at that point.
So there was a proposal for a public notice, and actually written up, but you did not go forward with the public notice to actually beef up that public record.
No,
Can you describe why that
no,
public notice wasn't issued?
no, thank you, Senator. I think what we did was that we hit pause, and I publicly announced that we were hitting pause for the purpose of enriching the record, and that I think I said at that point in time, we know the big dogs are going to sue on this, and we want to make sure that we've got I's dotted and T's crossed.
Another concern was really the circumvention by the FCC of the ex parte communication requirement. In a 1992 Office of Legal Counsel opinion, they're obviously concerned about that independence of the agency, and they write, White House staff members should avoid even the mere appearance of interest or influence. And the easiest way to do so is to avoid discussing matters pending before the independent regulatory agencies. Now, there were a number of meetings that we uncovered in our investigation, emails going back and forth between yourself and members of the White House, where clearly this open internet ruling was being discussed, and yet there was never a record made of those ex parte communications. I find that very troubling.
Thank you, Senator. Knowing this was in your report, I did go check the rules, and the rules say, quote, that only substantial significance, that the only times that you need ex parte is when there is substantial significance and is clearly intended to affect the ultimate decision.
Well,
and that applies to both communications with the White House and communications
Well, again,
with Congress.
You go down timeline in terms of the path you're going down in terms of the open internet ruling,
Right.
and then President Obama coming out with his statement, and then the FCC turning on a dime. I would say those discussions were pretty significant.
So the President
Commissioner
filed
Pai,
an ex parte, though, right? I mean, I just want to make sure we get the record straight here, that an ex parte was filed by the administration.
on one of those, but there were
on
other
their
ones.
change of
Read the
position.
report. I was actually shocked at the chairman's statement during his opening statement that the FCC was going to get out of the way and let innovation and competition reign. Commissioner Pai, do you think regulating the internet under Title II is getting out of the way and letting innovation and competition? Can you describe what's been happening in terms of innovation investment in broadband and internet after this ruling?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I do not think it is getting out of the way of innovation and investment, and the agency itself didn't think that until November 10th of 2014. I think what we've seen in 2015 is the fact that among both major wireline broadband providers and small providers, that investment in innovation is slowing. And for example, we've heard from a number of small wireless ISPs, one of whom testified to Congress just last month that she is shelving plans to upgrade her network in rural Arkansas to serve her customers precisely because of the uncertainty and the burden posed by these regulations. Among major providers, we have seen the first ever decline in broadband wireline investment in the internet age outside of the tech bubble bursting in 2001 and the Great Recession in 2008. Now, I think that it's telling that some of these major companies are now spending billions of dollars on companies like AOL, or even putting their investments abroad. And that's because presumably they think the return on the investment is now greater in areas outside of the broadband infrastructure. And that's an unfortunate thing for the American consumer.
So possibly with a little bit more public notice, a more robust record, maybe we would not have gone down this, what I think, very harmful path.
Senator,
Well, I think the
with all-
internal
with-
documents in your report prove that. If you look at the report, email after email suggests the FCC career staff, and I once was one of them, said we do not believe that there's adequate notice for all of these separate areas. 9 separate aspects of the plan were thought to be lacking in terms of public input.
With all due respect to my colleague, what he has just portrayed as facts are not. Investment is up, and I can quote you from the statements that the companies themselves make when they are reporting to Wall Street, because I have it here. Fiber is up 13% over last year. Usage of the internet is up, and that has driven what you want to be up, which is increased revenue per subscriber for the internet companies. In the last year, since the open internet order took place. So I would just suggest that the representations that we've heard are not necessarily factual.
You're not challenging his assertion there were 9 aspects of this rulemaking that had a thin record.
No,
Your own staff said that. You're not challenging
I am
that, are you?
challenging his assertion about the effects, and I'm saying insofar as the record is concerned, we worked with the staff, and the job of the staff is constantly to say, hey, there are issues you need to address, and one of the reasons that I pushed pause was to make sure we addressed all the issues.
I'm out of time.
Senator,
Well, Mr. Chairman, can Commissioner Pai respond?
well, with the indulgence of the chairman, so it's telling that on one hand, we are saying that all this investment is up, infrastructure is booming, yet on the other hand, just 1 month ago, the chairman and a majority of the commission said broadband is not being reasonably and timely deployed pursuant to Section 706. Well, which is it? Is the broadband infrastructure broken or is it not?
34 million
submit to you
Americans that don't have enough.
And
That's
I would
not
submit to
deployed.
you that part of the reason why it is not, part of the reason why I agreed with the chairman and my colleagues that broadband is not being reasonably deployed in a timely way is precisely because the FCC's policies have failed. This administration's policies on broadband have failed. And that's part of the reason why we see this decline in broadband infrastructure investment. There's a reason why Google, for example, has a greater market capitalization than every cable company in the United States combined. And it's no accident that the regulatory infrastructure we have built is now depressing broadband investment.
We are not seeing a decline in broadband infrastructure investment. You can say it and say it and say it, but it doesn't make it a fact.
The facts speak for themselves. And I'd be happy to submit the sworn declarations of numerous ISPs for the record.
I'll be happy to submit the information that the companies provide under penalty of SEC to their investors about their investment.
I'll simply say it's striking what CEOs with pending mergers before the FCC will say about the FCC's top priorities.
I'm talking about AT&T and Comcast and companies like that.
Who are typically repeat players before an agency that regulates them highly.
Thank you,
This
Mr.
is
Chairman.
good. No, this is good stuff, Senator Johnson. So,
Appreciate it.
Happy to oblige, yes.
let's bring it back to the Green Bay Packers.
I think I've done my work here. I have to go.